Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Ryan from the Dungeon Crawl. I want to apologize for what you're about to hear. It's a great podcast, I promise you, but we screwed up Braxton's microphone. Somehow in the process, we took his bass knob and turned it all the way to 0. And by 0, I mean like negative. So there's no bass in Braxton's voice at all. So it sounds like he's working at McDonald's or something. I don't know, crazy. Other than that, it's a great episode. Hope you enjoy it. See you guys on the other side.
Alexa, tell me a Dungeons and Dragons joke.
Some adventurers walk into a bar.
Okay.
The bar eats them.
Hold on, I don't get it.
It's a mimic. The bar's a mimic.
I don't think that was clear enough.
Ask her another one. That one doesn't count. That's like an anti-joke.
It's kind of JD wants back in here.
In.
Alexa, tell us a Dungeons and Dragons joke.
There you go.
What do you call a beholder rogue? An I spy.
An I spy.
A beholder rogue. Why would they want to be a rogue?
Why not?
JD, what are you doing in here?
You can be anything when you're a beholder. You just gotta dream it up.
You gotta dream it up. That's what we're talking about.
Go listen to our beholder episode.
There's a beholder on the Monster Manual.
There is. Speaking of Monster Manual, yeah. That's right.
We got a camera going on.
For audio listeners, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel for a little bit of visual component. We are now pretty much permanently in person, so there's a little bit more interaction here, but we have the monster around in front of us because it's going to come into play for this episode.
Apologies for any cable noise you're hearing. I'm moving it around like a motherfucker.
It's all right, man.
Explicit language here on this podcast. We do have that as a tag.
Yes. We went to go eat.
Let's go closer to you.
We had some
bonding.
good food. Yeah, I had fajitas. We shared a bowl of queso.
Yeah. Did he split it?
Yeah, he split it 3 ways, even though my girlfriend didn't eat any of it.
Well, that's how you get cheaper queso.
That's true.
Easy beans. But I think last week we did a big ol' shebang on Ravenloft.
We did.
Every time I say that, I have to
try not to. It was a great episode.
It was a good episode.
Thanks for listening to it, guys. Watching it, gassing it up on the channel.
It drained my brain of both effort and ideas.
So it's back to your normal brain.
Back to my normal, yes. So where the hell do we go from there? I had no idea.
Until
we were
inspiration struck Braxton.
Well, I don't remember what it was in particular, but since we had looked at quite a few things from Wizards of the Coast, I suppose, mixed in with like the rigor.
A few times, yeah.
We've done it a few times, and I think at this point it's like I have an idea as to what. I don't want to say I know what Wizards of the Coast is doing because I don't think anybody.
Yeah,
does.
We didn't talk about that last episode, but I have no idea where they're going with this next.
There you go. There's our long and short of it. But
I would like a planar book, but if it's in the same, we talked about this after the episode, and it's just some behind the scenes crawl.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Kenneth and Braxton after the episode. That I'd like a planar book, but if it's done in the same manner as Ravenloft, Fan Richton's Guide to Ravenloft, I don't know if I would like it.
I can't even imagine a planar book like that, but I see JD doesn't even.
Because if each plane was like the domains and they had like locations and stuff.
But that's
kind of
be
bigger though, I guess.
It would have to be bigger because in the case of the plane, that's an entire existence.
Yeah, it's an entire
everything
place.
That is. Wait, would that work this way? Everything that's in the Shadowfell is only the Shadowfell versus where you've got the astral plane, and then you've got the plane of the living, whatever that is called.
Material plane.
Material plane, and then every other plane has their material plane. No. What is that? What am I thinking? I guess that's the astral.
I have no idea what you're thinking about. So the astral plane connects everything. Apparently we have to go back and review our planar episodes that we did.
It's been a many weeks.
Plane stuff is tough and confusing. I think we prefaced that episode about it
at all in 5th edition whatsoever. So
there's like a couple blurbs in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and that's about it.
Yeah. Now I do have to admit, you have a lot of like whenever he mentions he's read this or that, and he has resources. He's actually read them. There's an entire bookcase behind us that you probably can't see.
Yeah, I think you guys could probably just see my counseling psychology books.
Yeah.
Well, got a big book that says cocaine behind me.
Do you have something to... Never mind. So the big point about this is that he is well studied and well learned. As a contrast to that, I am not. So it's making me want to be more, I guess, studious for these sorts of things. So I was looking at different resources, player-made stuff on DM's Guild. I know Blasphemy. But I was thinking, like, on our one-shot episode, we talked about kind of just how to run it in general and like do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
But
with Jamie?
Yes. I wanted to run back and kind of think about the earliest stages of it. Like, how do you even decide what you want to do? Where do you move from? How do you format it?
Yeah.
All those sorts of things. I don't think we dived into that.
I'd say it also goes into campaigns, too.
Yeah.
That's definitely a different kind of beast.
I almost feel like campaigns are easier than one-shots.
Really? See,
that's the way I do it.
For me, campaigns I think are harder, but in a way you could even, depending on the way you run your campaigns, they very much could be multiple one-shots strung together with an overarching plot, which honestly, if you think of what arcs are, they kind of are.
Yeah.
Though they aren't one-shots, they're just longer form one-shots, I guess. There's
a lot more room, I think, in a campaign to just kind of let things go to the wind, and versus a one-shot. If you're saying, hey guys, I'm going to encapsulate everything into one session experience.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, are expecting a well-oiled machine, or at least one that seems like it's a well-oiled machine. So in that vein, this is the Dungeon Crawl. This is how we do it. He's Ryan.
He's Braxton.
And today we're going to be talking about one-shots in a way, shape, and form, but also just kind of how to format things and how to find inspiration and where you can find those little tidbits that's like, okay, this is something I want to write a story on, and then create it.
Now, are we talking about what we're doing with it?
No. Did you hear that? Did anybody hear that?
No, they shouldn't have heard that. No. They just heard Braxton say no.
We had an executive decision to make here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the thing. We're gonna be sneaky about it.
So, where to start? I mean, I guess that's the opening, beginning.
Yeah.
Where do you start with a one shot? Where do you go with it? We really can get inspiration from anywhere.
Yeah. If I were to start doing a one shot right now, most of the time it's like, what am I interested in? Sure. Is there a story I want to write? Is there an anime that I want to kind of rip off, emulate, and then basic shit.
I think one shots give you more liberty to, like, I want to make a one shot that's literally just Lord of the Rings, where you are taking this to, Mordor or whatever. You can.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd say you literally can make the exact same plot of a movie, book, whatever, and just go with it because it's a one shot. I mean, people are having fun about. People want to live their Frodo dreams. Why not?
Okay,
I think campaigns are less. You'd have less liberty to do some of that because people might want to do a quick 4-hour, 5-hour game rather than a full-on campaign of a movie they've already seen.
Yeah, hell, how much of Lord of the Rings would it be, and how long would the one shot even be? How long is a one shot?
To be fair, there is a Lord of the Rings tabletop RPG.
Is it good?
I've never played it. The source material for it is really good, like the way the books are laid out.
Dude, the Monster Hunter tabletop RPG is insane looking, but that's a different topic for
it's the same guys that made the Dark Souls one.
I've heard they didn't do too hot.
No, Dark Souls one is apparently not very good.
But we digress. We're not trying to jump into another system, which we definitely are interested in at some point. At least I know Kenneth is. But in regards to one shots, for me, it's that's bad manners. My phone's on the table. We'll ignore that for now.
It's not buzzing.
So one shots, I have a very hard time actually getting them in one shot. And I think that comes down to poor planning on my part.
Well, it's tough to, think about when you prepare for a campaign, right? I definitely prepare way more than I'm like, oh my God, do I have enough? And it turns out what I prepared goes over like 2 sessions or something. That happens with one shots constantly. We're like, all right, I feel like I have this much all prepared. Let's dive into it. Turns out you have way too much. And it's like a 6-hour game and everyone's getting tired and sick of it. So you got to.
How do you get to that point where you have too much? Are you just writing story, or is it mechanics, or is it plot? Background.
I think for one shots, it comes down to just writing too many encounters. Yeah. You want to have enough where it's interesting, but you also don't want to make it too quick. So you got to have a good balance. And when I do one shots, I'll usually prepare too much. But if I see it dragging out, I'll cut entire rooms out of my dungeons.
So yeah, now you're kind of pulling things behind the screen. When you're making a one shot, in my case, it might be more improv-y, but when you do it, how are your notes laid out? What do you have physically prepared, and what's just kind of in your brain ready to go whenever you need to?
So that's a tough question because I've done one shots off the cuff where, like Braxton, for example, say he's not able to make it to a game. Everyone else, sorry, I touched him again. Everyone's there except for Braxton. Something came up with his family. He can't make it, but everyone's already at the table. Make a quick character. We'll do a quick one shot together. I've done that a couple times. But I've also done where I have time. We know someone's going to be missing next session, so we'll do a quick one shot together. And I get time to prepare. And when I've done that, I've definitely prepared more. I've done like a one shot from the history of my own world. and I got to really have fun with it and play around with the lore and stuff. Granted, I know the lore of my world already, so if I were to do a one-shot in someone else's world or agnostic world, there'd be less lore. I'd probably improv most lore and most background stuff. I just would write down for example, a dungeon. I'd write down the cave, what each dungeon room is, the basic big bad guy of the dungeon, and what's a threat and what's something the party can get. You probably want to have a few items here and there just so the party can quote unquote level up through the one shot.
That's the hardest thing about one shots for me is that motivation, because it's such a fleeting thing. Like what persists from this? It's a very existential question. What matters really?
I think that's tough for one shots.
It's a very tough question.
But for the dungeon stuff, I think you really should stick to what we'd said for our dungeon episode, where it's like I think we said like the 3-room or 4-room dungeon like that, and each room has a very specific purpose. And you could, in theory, improv a whole dungeon just like that. You know, this room is the entrance. This room is the puzzle bargain room. This room has the fight, and the final room has the big boss with maybe something extra tossed in.
So how would you change it if it was something that you were making, a one-shot that you were preparing, not for a specific occasion, but just to have in your pocket? So you don't have a particular party that you're running for. It's something that another person could maybe run. How does that change things?
You need to make it less, like when I write things like notes for class, I'll write it just bullet point form stuff that's easy for me to understand. But if I were to hand it to Braxton, he'd probably
doodle in the corner that tells you everything you need to know. But for me, it's like, hey, there's
what the hell is this, man?
There's a dick on your page. I don't know if you drew that or somebody else drew that.
The dick is pointing to a very important part of the note.
Sure it is.
You noticed. But it's like if I hand that to you, you'd have no idea what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So if you're writing for somebody else, read Wizards of the Coast stuff, it's very sometimes very simple to understand and process, but I'd even say Wizards of the Coast oftentimes gets too wordy with it.
Yes.
I think you want to restrain yourself and write less. I think less is more when it comes to, writing modules, period, but writing one-shots for sure.
Well, I don't even feel like I have a good example of a one-shot per se from Wizards of the Coast, because the closest experience I've had recently, that is to say, is Candlekeep. And the reason I say that is because
those are all one-shot. Yeah,
those are
I'd say.
Would you?
Yeah.
You could do them in one
majority
or two.
of them.
There's some that are longer, especially like the last few.
I'd say Death House as well.
Yeah. So the thing with those is a lot of them were written by, or all of them were written by freelancers. So I wouldn't even consider that really Wizards of the Coast written. It's produced by them.
What about Adventurers League stuff?
See, I haven't read much Adventurers League stuff.
It's very standard fare.
So who writes it?
That I don't know. I imagine there's a team that writes just straight Adventures League stuff, but they'll write. I actually don't know if they're writing stuff currently. I haven't kept up with Adventures League, but I know when big module books are coming out, like for example, Curse of Strahd, that Adventures League season is all built around Strahd and getting them into Ravenloft, and people can carry over.
Of Adventures League, like the competitive D&D? In a sense, if there was to be one, isn't that it?
Yeah, I'd say if there is a competitive D&D, that would be it. Yeah, because your character carries over from game to game. So if you think about it, it's a gigantic world of extremely powerful people.
Yeah. So in that case, I can see that one-shots would be more valuable to me in the sense that if this is a character I'm bringing in, I can get an item from this one shot and bring it into the next one.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot more fun to me.
Yeah, it's Adventures League.
That is cool. Different DMs though, right?
Yes, you just go to a local game store and they're playing Adventures League Module 2.1 or something, and that's what you play that day.
Okay. So in the case that I'm writing one, the issue that I run into for one-shots is that note aspect. Everything's in my brain. I have to somehow put it onto paper. And then when you jump into the things like Candlekeep versus Ravenloft, the Ravenloft domains almost feel one-shot in nature.
You could.
You really could, the way they've written them, especially since the
you definitely have to expand on them if you wanted to have a whole campaign. So
the lords themselves, like one's a rat king queen type thing, and even Kenneth pointed it out that they're not the most all-powerful beings, which the book says up front. But case in point to that, there's no content in it to me.
Yeah.
Which is the issue that we talked in our review before. So when I make a one-shot, I almost want it to dictate how the entire thing goes.
I think you do get more of a railroady-ish. I hesitate to say that, but more of a, there's less options when it comes to, I mean, you have a story. You have to get this story completed before that's how the one shot ends. It's either that or everyone dies, I guess. So you have a little bit more of I think people are more okay with it feeling a little more railroady. Granted, that doesn't mean like if you're having a puzzle room or encounters, the only way to solve the encounter is the way the DM has written it.
Yeah.
I mean, just like the way the story goes, there's probably like one way, and then if, an NPC gets killed, then the DM can improv a little bit, but that's about it.
Well, one-shots by nature, the weird thing versus a campaign theoretically has an entire world that probably has been prepared by a DM or other source.
And it grows and changes as you do stuff.
So it's easier to have this open world aspect versus a one-shot. Is it ever not going to be railroaded? Is it even a one-shot if you just say, hey, jump in, here's a town, do literally whatever you want? Is that even a one-shot? Because it's so much in the player's hands, even if it does finish in one session.
I think the nature of a one-shot, no, I'd say it's not.
Yeah. So that's something that I literally just realized is that it kind of
it'd be like a really weird session 0 where you're actually playing in the world but not doing anything.
And even in the case that you have like a ton of branching paths, or like a BioShock game or something, where there's like endings A through Z, like Nier Automata or something. In that case, still it's kind of one story rather than you guys jump out and make your story, because I feel like one-shots have a purpose more often than not, right?
Yeah, you go in with a genre in mind, a creature in mind you want to make the story around. You usually have like you said, a purpose. I'm making this one-shot because I want my players to experience this one thing.
So in your case, if you were looking for inspiration, where would you go in particular?
I mean, so the way I've done it in the past is like I just grab the monster. I can't open it.
That's a little teamwork here.
Yeah,
I still can't even get it. I don't even know if that actually helps you.
That's a bad page.
No, you got to do it. Go with it.
I'd open up the monster manual and find the monster I like and create plot hooks. I mean, really, if you think about it, a simple plot hook, that's a one-shot.
So he said before the podcast started that he would open it up to a random page, any page, and he would go with whatever monster it is. And that's a Tarrasque for you people. In the audio version, he landed on the
highest CR monster in existence officially for 5e.
And one of the most boring monsters.
Fairly so.
Good stuff.
But for example, let's do a different one.
Aw.
Like, you can't really make a plot hook in that. It comes out of you give someone the scroll of summoning Tarrasque.
Maybe you land on a planet that's filled with Tarrasques. I don't know.
That'd be a bad plan to live on.
It would be a very bad. How do you get out? Now it's a horror one-shot, and there's almost no combat. It's just all stealthing, and there's probably still combat. But
okay, I like these guys.
What's that?
The Mica Knights.
Shrooms. Is that? I wonder if that's what Kenneth was using in his camp. Quaggoth Spore Servant seems cool.
Yeah, so the Mica Knights are really cool. They're like little mushroom dudes. But all you do is read the little lore write-up on them and then create some random plot hooks, and you can have a whole story just based on that small plot hook. And especially the Mica Knights are super easy to do because there's multiple different variations. So you can have multiple different type of Mica Knights going on in your game.
Dude, I want to do something with Nagas.
Nagas are fun.
Yeah, they're really cool. But the thing that I find a lot of inspiration from is mechanical, visceral things. So sometimes I'll find an ability on a creature alone that can kind of lean into an entire story. So the, what are their names again? You've used them. The Wendigos.
Wendigo.
That has a lot of like subterfuge in there and a bunch of theft or stealing of people that can brew a story. So even just outside of the descriptions, that's really what gets me. It's like something that it's like playing a game. You find the class that you really want to do, and it's like, that's the thing that I want to jump in and go into right now, leaning into those excitabilities.
I'd say you should grab from Van Richten's guide, go to that genre section, choose one of those genres, lean in hard on that, shoot a creature you like that fits with it. I mean, it even has creatures that are in that genre, and then really go hard with creating that feeling, that environment. Hell, you can even just choose an environment. I want to make a swamp one shot. Okay, what are creatures that are in swamps? Carrion crawlers. Probably not the best creature to use as a full big bad of a one shot, but you could have them in there at some point, and you can maybe use a hack.
Well, maybe in this giant Tarrasque world, the only types of animals that can live are these non-predatory people that eat the dead bodies of things left behind by these guys, carrion crawlers. They live inside the Tarrasque. Maybe you go inside a Tarrasque, one shot.
A dead Tarrasque or a living Tarrasque.
Dude, that'd be sick. It's kind of like Monster
Hunter. I mean, one shots do, we've kind of already said this, but give you liberty to get really weird with it. too. Go inside a Tarask, or you're on a different planet, or hell, the Candlekeep one where you get shot into space. Maybe you're on a small little space shuttle going out. Really cool. Maybe the one shot starts after that thing takes off, and you're one of the guys on board where you're like, well, now I don't want to be here anymore. I want to get off. So you got to figure out how to get off.
So that's the interesting thing about one shots to me is I was like, what? The idea I had is not an original one. It is literally two things that we have already mentioned. I was going to say, what if you just do one shots back to back to back as if they connect to each other in a form, and you can bring characters from the previous one into the new one. I was like, okay, well, A, that's a campaign, and B, that's also Adventures League. So my brain is still dead.
So there's this thing that I have here that this is the one that I did an improv one shot with. It's called Oath of the Frozen King. I didn't have the full book at the time, so I just used a PDF.
There, was I?
No, you were not here. This is by Absolute Tabletop. They do really good stuff. They just released a full campaign setting called Dragon Grin. Very cool. But this is a small little book called Oath of the Frozen King, and it's basically an adventure within itself. But they give you lots of modular options. And the biggest thing that stuck with me is they'd say take 6 die, roll them, sorry, what did I say? Roll them. And it's all the different ones. It's the D8, the D4, the D20, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. Roll them all. Wherever they land, draw around that. That's the way. People do this with maps.
Isn't that Matt Colville thing? He put a
maybe
video at some point. I don't know.
But people do that with maps all the time. But this is for dungeons. You lay that out and draw circles, and these are all dungeons. And beforehand, or you can do it after the fact. I guess you probably should do it beforehand because they're using their own things. But each die is tied to a very specific room. So take a die, tie that to a room, design the room, whatever, or just use here. And then each room, so it can change constantly.
And the shapes, are those based off the die as well?
That's what it looks like,
It kind of looks like they did. That's cute.
But yeah, each the layout will change. So it's kind of like a roguelike in a way. It changes constantly. And they give you lots of options. So it takes place in a frozen mountain, but they say you can very easily put this in a desert. And they tell you options of how it could change to a desert. It's completely modular. It's very cool. And like I said, I only ran it once. But it's given me so many ideas to help me run other types of one-shots. So I definitely recommend checking out Oath of the Frozen King.
Mark this timestamp for those of you that pay attention to stuff we do. Roguelike D&D.
And that's that's what people do at cons, kind of.
That's really interesting.
That's Tomb of Horrors, kind of, in a way.
Well,
but it doesn't change.
I have no idea. Yeah, that would be... I might put that into Chronicles at some point somewhere. That sounds really cool. It would be a lot of effort making a dungeon that you would have to have a massive list of items, and they would need to be set as soon as the dungeon's made. And
there's probably something like this that exists.
It definitely exists, but I think
or it could be an untapped market. I
mean, if you want to run one shots and your friends can't do a campaign, and you need a way to create them off and over and over and over again, a generator for something like this. But
there are generators do exist. You go to donjon.bin.ish or something. You can just type in Donjon and you'll find a DONJON. And they have dungeon generators. Granted, you probably don't want to just run straight off of that, but it can give you lots of inspiration and ideas.
Yeah, the issue I've always had with Donjon is while it does give you a great layout, it's that issue you have where you open a book of some sort from Wizards of the Coast or whatever, and it's just like paralysis with information. Sometimes the dungeons, while you can control it, it's so big, and it does give you traps and icons and monsters in them, and it's like a mess of chords.
Yeah,
and it's a different sort of preparing that is a little difficult.
Well, it's kind of like how I use Van Richten's guide. It's an information trove. You get lots of inspiration, lots of ideas from it, but I would never just like improv. I mean, I don't think I'm the greatest improv DMer, so I don't know if I could just use something like that.
To do. Even though I consider myself to be a good improv DMer, I am nowhere near the level of people that I don't know how much improv.
I'd like to see Stephen King do an improv DM session because he improvs his books basically.
I mean, isn't life improv in a sense?
Have you ever heard of pantsing?
No.
No, pants.
Pantsing? Like,
I don't know if that's the term, but he's coined the term. I think it came from him on writing on the seat of your pants, where you write and it just keeps flowing because he knows he's a character writer, so he knows his character so well. He just lets it happen. There's also that quote from Tolkien where he says, I was crying at the side of my seat whenever Frodo didn't see Gandalf at the inn, and I was crying when this happened. Like he's basically saying, I didn't know these things were going to happen until they happened.
It really is just like fanfic, man. I mean, it basically is. It's just the OG version.
I mean, if you guys ever want to read an actual D&D campaign, read the Malazan Book of the Fallen series.
Giving that to us.
Damn. Read Malazan Book of the Fallen series. I have some of them there. They're a little tough to get into, but the guy literally wrote it from his tabletop RPG campaigns that he made with his friends, and so he took them and just wrote them into book form.
See, that's what I would love to try to do, but it's so much harder than you make it seem just by saying.
I mean, to be fair, he's also a good author, so it's
I've gotten none of that background outside of just the theater and being able to improvise things, kind of. But I mean, that's the ultimate goal, especially for a one-shots case, is because to me it feels like it doesn't have to be purpose driven, but there's utility around it. There's a reason why it's happening. Otherwise, it's like, what's pulling them in? At least for Ryan and I know we're similar in that matter. We have to have
some people like just playing D&D. They don't care what it is. They just want to play more D&D. Yeah. So a very quick, easy one shot will be fine. Oh, I can't believe I forgot about this.
He's turning around to get something.
Yeah, grabbing books. Yeah, it helps that we're here now.
I'm glad that you know where they are.
The mini dungeon tome. I feel like we've talked about this book before.
There's a ranger on the back, so I don't know if it's very good.
No, it's a great book. Every page, literally every page in this book is a dungeon, which you could in theory do as a one shot. So let's just quickly open it up and look at one. Okay, sorry, 2 pages here. That's called Hall of the Hellbound Heart. 3 PCs, level 7. Entire dungeon built out. Some background lore that takes up 4 paragraphs.
As Matheon, an aspiring necromancer of some infamy.
And then it has the rooms. And there you go. Boom, done. Next page.
That's cute.
It's very cool. Highly recommend you check it out.
Have you used this? You could theoretically scan these.
I haven't yet, but I'm
Did you get a PDF version?
I think I have a PDF version.
Yeah, because these maps would be amazing to just drop into your games themselves. Because it would be kind of tough to do this.
Each one's 2 pages. I forgot about this.
There's 2 pages, but that's still the text is pretty big.
It's so good. It's very, very good. It's by AAW Games. It even comes with like a little bookmark thing. Look at that.
Yeah, if you're looking to run one shots, basically this episode is just like we're gonna waffle about resources that we've got that you can literally jump out and go get right now.
Oh, it's called AdventureAweekGames.com. Go check it out.
Adventure a Week. Is it? When did it come out? I doubt it says it right there.
I want to say it came out 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, so it's brand new basically.
Yeah, I've had it for a little bit. And you have the table of contents that literally shows you every single book in here. It's super cool. I definitely recommend you guys check it out.
Does it have a pretty wide range of themes?
Yes.
And monsters themselves?
It goes up to, I'm gonna say level 20, but I don't think it's possible. That really does. But it goes up very, very high.
If it did, you could pretend that this is like an Enter the Gungeon style infinite massive dungeon with all these things in them.
You could. Even has, see, like a little, what are these called? An index where it shows each creature. So if you want a specific one, you can find it in here.
That is interesting.
Okay, it goes up to
the pages they have colors on the end of them as well. So the I don't know, when the book is closed, you can kind of see where it's going.
Each one's a different tier, I believe. This one says level any. I don't know if that counts.
Oh, that actually
level 20 right here. Yeah.
The Heartless Queen's Revenge
by Stephen Yeardley.
Now that one's got a lot more story.
This one's the Rainbow Lich.
Rainbow Road?
I mean, to be fair, Lich is probably good for level 20. So literally every single level, every single tier is in this book.
I kind of want to take that right now.
Hey, back off, bitch.
Hey, whoa, hey, you said you haven't read it at all?
No, I have. No, I haven't used it. I haven't used it.
Damn. All right. Well, shit. I don't know. You got an assload of things over here. So if you're not like Ryan, just
give an assload.
There's a thing about a lot of D&D books coming out right now. It's because they're all Kickstarters, so you can never really know. Yeah,
you'll Kickstart something and get it 2 years later.
Yeah, that too. Or it just is absolutely terrible, but you get it next day. There's
you gotta find companies you like. WotC, doesn't really do stuff like this. So
do you like WotC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so if you're looking for stuff like that, Kobold Press would be really good. They have one shots called don't remember. They have something layers. Don't remember. I think they have ones called Mythic Layers and then like Tome of Beast layers where they like use the layers from their Tome of Beast stuff. And those are all one shots. Then you could also move over to Frog God Games. They got really good ones.
I like to say that I'm into D&D stuff, and then how much time do you spend genuinely? Just how much of your week is D&D outside of your campaign? If it's stuff for your campaign, that's fine. But actually writing for your campaign, don't include that.
So just like looking at stuff.
Just studying D&D or tabletop RPGs.
I mean, I look at stuff that I find interesting. It's things I've backed. The company, I mean, I follow these companies. I get email, newsletter stuff, so I see what they're up to. Anything Kobold Press does, I will 100% back nowadays. I love their quality of stuff. They do the Toma Beast. They do Creature Codex. They do all that really good stuff.
So if there's any of you out there that was looking for our ethos, so to speak, that was a clap because Ryan's resetting all the stuff here because our camera has a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
So all of our ethos lies within Ryan, I suppose, in terms of like an actual biblical.
Who has
form
the pathos?
I mean, both. I don't want to say it's all him. Basically, I'm just here along for the ride.
No, you do good stuff.
I got some good stuff. Yeah, I wonder why. Like, I guess for Chronicles, I was just like, I wanted to run a campaign because I hadn't.
Well, are you talking about why you ran it over anybody else? Well, we talked about this on the Footnotes episode, which was Dungeon Chronicles waffling stuff. But you ran the campaign because I was busy, Kenneth was busy, and now hang on, let me finish. Because Jamie could have ran it, but we also thought it'd be interesting if the whole last like year and a half that we were doing the Dungeon Chronicle crawl. The Dungeon Crawl at that point was turning Braxton from the just straight player guy to learning and DMing stuff. So
exactly,
it was kind of showing to see if it paid off.
So if I'm correct, and a big reason why I wanted to talk about one-shots today is like I mentioned in the beginning, I've been seeing a lot more of how people choose to lay things out.
Yeah, we've been running one-shots. We've been in one-shots on our
nonstop on the Discord.
Yeah, in our Discord.
So if you haven't
from listeners and friends
in the Discord yet, and you want to test out a one-shot, jump in there. We probably want to get to know you a little bit before we just like run stuff, but jump in there, chat with us a bit, and maybe you can set up a time for a lot of us when we're on. There's like 8, 9, 10 of us. But in my case, the next episode that's going to be out from this recording for the Dungeon Chronicles, I'm hoping shows a lot of what we've learned. It's kind of a jumping off point here. So from the layouts that we've seen with even up to Ravenloft, which is pretty soon before the next episode of Chronicles will be out, I've been trying to gather stuff and seeing like what matters to me in terms of formatting and layout. Because
you have to find out what works for you.
You flat out said that like I'm almost a straight up improv DM.
Yes.
Almost everything I do is improv.
You'll get a little bit of backstory or
that's what I actually write.
I haven't seen your notes, of course. I haven't seen your notes, but I imagine you get some backstory stuff. Maybe prepare an encounter or two that you want to happen, and that's about it.
Yeah. So far,
our backgrounds, and maybe pull from those occasionally.
That's pretty much it. It's like there's a reservoir in my brain. I guess it's kind of like writing on the edge of your seat.
I would say, I'd say it's kind of what you do. Because I'd say, Stephen King and them and Tolkien, obviously.
I am no Stephen King or Tolkien.
No, I'm not saying he is. But,
not yet.
But they know their worlds good enough. I mean, granted, Stephen King usually writes in reality more or less with a few tweaks. But Tolkien, I mean, granted, he was a linguist, so he created the language. But he created this gigantic world, right? So he was confident enough that he could just kind of write and stuff. That's when I improv. That's what I do too. Is I've created this world. I know your guys' backstory. So 9 times out of 10, my improv stuff comes from pulling from that stuff. Because it's easy. It's what's on. What
I said it before. It's cheesy, but life is improv.
True.
Not many of us or none of us have died or lived this life and have come back. Well, it depends on how you view reincarnation, maybe. Sure. And do you keep those memories?
I haven't reached nirvana yet.
I don't know.
Trying this life.
The stuff that I don't know. And the one-shots are definitely not the place to explore that as an absolute for the universe. You probably can within it with the characters. But I just think it's a good way to test things out, which is why I kind of want to see you, at least, I mean, maybe even for our personal group, do a one-shot because you haven't done one for me, not for my character.
You haven't been in a one-shot that I've ran.
Time. Because
I've only ever ran them when you're not there.
Right. And I've been praising Ryan's DMing a lot more. I probably should stop.
Gas me up, man.
Because gas him up. But there was this. Here's your D&D stats. You've got like a standard array for yourself as a DM, and there was like high and low stats from like 15 all the way to 8 for things like improv, voices, story, etc.
It was a tweet.
And 8 was the lowest one, and then there was like 10, 11, 12,
your
and a
standard
couple 13s, 15s, and I was like, I couldn't think of what your 8 would be, and
I said improv.
But to the point of like, I don't think the standard array makes it difficult. You kind of have to work with it. Like, I don't think any of, maybe both of us, we don't have like below a 10 anywhere. You've seen my shit, so you can tell me if it's terrible or not. Definitely in the beginning.
I'd say improv is my lowest, but I still do like I'll improv stuff. Like I've improv whole sessions just because they went way off base before, and they're like, dude, that was great.
Well, I gotta know which ones those were.
How long have you prepared that for? I was like, dude, I knew like about 2 of the things that happened there. We just kind of went crazy.
Well, that's the thing too. If you're running a one shot and everything gets entirely derailed, it can still be a one shot.
Yeah, be flexible. I think it's the biggest thing I think as a DM, if I can pass one thing along to somebody, pass the torch along to somebody, is learn to be flexible. Don't get stuck in your ways. Don't say, I've spent a year prepping this awesome, badass story, and I want people to experience it. And then for whatever reason, I mean, because your players aren't you, your players are not interested in that story.
Yeah.
Or they kill a very important NPC and you have to like rewrite stuff. Be very flexible. Be okay with changing things. You might find stuff, like I usually write session to session. I have an overall plot, but I'll write session to session, and things will happen in the previous session where like, that's cool. I want to kind of tie that into what's going on later and stuff like that. I mean, my girlfriend's playing through Kingdoms of Amalur right now, and I forgot this game did that. She said she got one of the NPCs, the quest givers that she was with, killed in like a spider attack. And then some guy came and was like, did that guy die? What happened? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll take you to the spot we're supposed to go to. So like they just adjust and keep moving on. And I think that's kind of what D&D is like. Granted, that was written by the guy that wrote Drizzt, so probably was why. But
that's got some current news coming out about it right now too, doesn't it? The Drow.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is, but Benedict Cumberbatch did like a whole, you know the guy?
I do. All these famous people work.
Have you not watched the video?
I haven't.
I don't think he's doing anything, but he voice acted and narrated this video that Wizard of the Coast put out about the Drow. Super cool.
Okay, I need to check that out. Yeah, I've been seeing it all over my YouTube and everywhere. I don't know. One shot's fun, cool. Yeah, I had an idea, but it's all gone in my brain now. I remember. Oh, right. So I'm going to mention this here because it's kind of a safe space because I don't want to confront them in the Discord right away. But if you're watching this,
scary.
If you're listening, you know who you are. You've written like 30 pages of stuff for your campaign that you're hoping to run possibly soon. And the thing that I'm worried about is how much of that is set in stone, and are you prepared for it to be derailed? Right. That's my big advice for you. You know you are. So if you've listened to this episode, which I don't know if you're caught up or not, you have no obligation to do that. If you're in the Discord, definitely don't have to. But I'd love to talk to you about that. And especially I'm excited to see the campaign because you've gotten so passionate in writing all of this. Yeah. And this goes to all of you who are maybe writing one-shots because that could be your foray into Dungeons & Dragons itself. Like Ryan said, again, just kind of curtailing it. Be prepared for everything to just get screwed off or messed up and go in a bunch of different directions. And if you're that person that's writing an entire world, I think the form of background stuff is great. That's what can help you
stuff you can pull from
for sure. But if you're writing plot for the campaign itself, like session to session, and you're like 80 sessions ahead, you got to be one good DM at railroading for it to work, or
maybe it's just so interesting your players are gonna fall into. Cause that's not railroading if your players do it.
Yeah.
If they want to do that.
Yeah, they're the conductor. Like, this road is fine. This is okay.
Granted that you've written out the story, but I would say, okay, so you're most of the time been a player in your D&D life.
Yeah.
Would you rather? I mean, I know the answer, but would you rather feel like you have control over the story and are making an impact in the world, or feel like it's already kind of like your fate is predetermined?
Well, that can be a device in story itself.
Sure.
My view on it is if I have a DM that knows the Dungeon Master's Guide front to back and several other resources, and they can just improvise off the top of their brain.
But if you can't tell that it's all been predetermined.
I love following stories. I'm a good player to have if you're okay with railroading, or if you're going to railroad.
If it's a good story, yeah.
If it's a good story. So I don't know. Ryan could have had zero improv in this, and we've gone all to his devices. I'm having a good time. I don't give a fuck. But there's some people that want to interact with Dungeons and Dragons in any way, shape, or form. They don't necessarily need the story, so that's when those people can feel sense railroading more so. And
one shots zero will help you figure this stuff out.
Yeah, one shots might not be the best for those types of players. Well, it depends on the DM.
And one shots, you mentioned this earlier. If you don't know your group very well and want to, and you don't think session zero will be able to, you want to know what people are like in game. Run a quick one shot for everybody. See what it's like. Feel everybody out. They can be with their current characters. We even talked about for the Chronicles to do a quick one shot with everybody's characters.
Yeah.
But
I was even thinking about that before because I've done a lot of stuff for Romano's background. I'm just like, I would love to run a one-shot where the others are playing characters within your background, but then it's like, well, it'd be kind of nice for that to come out in the campaign itself. So one-shots are really cool. I'm interested in exploring one-shots within campaigns more often, like side stories. Say, oh, when you guys were doing this, you rested for a few days. This is a part of that story that we had.
Yeah, or something. This happened while you guys were busy. Yeah.
Obviously, the levels are kind of.
Or hell, I mean, like I said before, just back in the history of your world, the players heard about this really cool battle. Let's do a one shot and experience the battle at some point. That could be fun.
Yeah, there's a couple stuff in my main character's background that I'm like super interested in doing at some point. But I don't know for who, for when, for where, for why. At some point, maybe. But we've done an episode on one shots before. This is kind of like the things that we've been thinking about for the next. Few episodes. And
we might do a kind of I hate to say a series, but just kind of follow along this train of thought for a couple episodes.
Yeah, focus on creating and writing stuff because we're interested in doing that at some point.
The layouts and stuff. It very easily could say, I don't really have a good one in front of me, but we like to shit upon the WotC layout.
They did great with the genres, the horror genres.
Yeah, it's just the way that. Let me just grab one really quick here.
Oh boy.
No, I can't find it.
Well, you mentioned it when we were at lunch.
I did.
Is that they feel like they've got a precedent they need to follow with previous editions.
Yes, it all looks the same.
It all looks the same. It's a few paragraphs. There's some of my art sprinkled throughout. And I even saw this, I don't remember what it was. I think it was a Reddit post on how to lay things out. Mm-hmm. And it said, in quotes, do not be afraid of white space, with whoever mentioned it before. And it was this two-page layout with 2 columns on each page, and some of them just end with no content below. Yet now that's wasting trees and not being smart about your layout. It's definitely why some of these publishers do that. Yes. But if you've got everything on a dungeon block that you need right here, and you're going to start another room, and then it's going to go on the next page, maybe just scoot it up and over so that DM can be like, okay, I remember, like I've got a photographic memory that room 12 is on the top left part of this page, and there's nothing else below it, so I can go right to it. So it wouldn't be as useful in a PDF, but in a physical form, yeah, for sure. And those are the things I've been thinking about a lot lately, is how to present stuff to people so that they could use it. There's a lot of stuff that we do in school or at work where you need to write it as if somebody else could do it, being one of the simplest minded person ever. They can just do it without even thinking.
I think that's my biggest problem, and we'll talk about this in another episode, though, is with a lot of the D&D books is some of the information you need is in this gigantic paragraph underneath, and you really gotta... Like whenever I first started running stuff, I would highlight things like crazy. I think final thought for today is I would say if you're going to write a one shot, anything, I would say first time I challenge you to do it all on a single page of paper. That's a thing. There are competitions, 1 page one shots.
Is there like a font size rule?
I think it's 12 point. I'm not positive. You can look it up if you really want to do it, but you just do it you just let it go. But yeah, try to fit it all on 1 page. Make it manageable for you to read. Do it like this mini dungeon tome thing.
Do they have stat blocks in there?
Yes.
You could just do the reference this monster from the player's handbook or whatever.
Yeah. But I think that way you can get a sense of how to lay things out for yourself, how to how to hold yourself back and restrain yourself from writing way too much.
Yeah.
A lot of English classes will do something similar, force you to have this amount of word limit so you can get everything you need in that short amount of words.
Yeah, it can be easy to word vomit, but the amount of control is the hard part. It's easy to write like a 20-page novel, but it's even harder to fit that novel into 1 page.
Go listen to Writing Fantasy Podcast with Jesper Schmidt and Autumn
shout
Burke.
out for those guys.
Yeah,
we even had an episode where we interviewed them for a bit.
Yeah, and then they're probably more qualified to talk about writing than we are.
Yes, especially me.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if you are interested in joining the dialogue, at least on social media, we have @DungeonCrawlPod for both our Twitter and Instagram. Mm-hmm. We usually post twice a week, one for the Chronicles, a clip from that, and one for Crawl, this podcast you're listening to right now, also on the Twitter. Just a little clip of what we find to be the most useful.
We're going to post this right here. What's up?
I look like a tool. If you want to see that, go to @DungeonCrawlPod. If you want to send an email, that is thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com, which... also on the Discord, link tree below in whatever the form of you're listening to right now. We asked last week, because this is our run from 90 to 100, these next 10 episodes, we want to gather questions. Anything that you guys have that we can do a Q&A. I know we've done 90 episodes, so we've probably answered every cue that you could have had with RAs, but we would love to get those compiled up. If you jump in the Discord, there's listener comments where you can send those to us, or you could just shoot it straight towards us.
Email, any of that stuff.
That's all I got.
All right, I'm trying to get this out really quick.
Yeah.
Because we gotta, we're running low on time here. Make sure you guys head over to the iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and rate us 5 stars, and write down in the comments that this is awesome. That's my one take, one shot for this.
Do it. Or the bagman will get you in your sleep.
Get it? That was a one shot.
What?
That was a one shot, dude. I one take that, man.
Did you? Did I ruin it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good job. Nice. I'm proud of you.
Braxton sucks, man.
He's been Ryan.
He's been Braxton.
This is the Dungeon Crawl. Thanks for calling with us. See you guys next time.
Yeah, next week we'll be doing something similar-ish to this. Probably talking more about layout and that type of stuff.
Doing actual research. We were short on time this week, so we did a waffle.
Wafflecast.
Deuces.